So after completing our trip, we decided that we were going to try to come up with the top 10 of our favorite things we did on the trip. What's amazing is when you look back at how many things we actually went to see and how many miles we drove, it made it extremely difficult to come up with a top 10 list.
It was so hard. And we did break this into 2 videos because it was just going to be too long to do it all in one.
But we sat down, scratched our heads, made a list, and did our best at coming up with what we feel are our top 10 places we And they are in no particular order.
No, we did them in order by how we came to them.
Yes. So, as we did our loop is the order we're going to show them in. Still hard to believe we drove over 17,000 miles. Made a big circle.
Not really a circle. A big loop. Not very circular. There we are on the ferry, getting ready to go out to Mackinac Island.
Mackinac is a really interesting place. Sonia, of course, you've been there when you were a kid.
When I was little, yeah.
I had never been there. I think the neat part about it is there's no vehicles allowed. And it really hasn't changed that much over the years. And there have been new buildings built and that, but there's still so much historic buildings on the island, and
they're beautiful.
Yes. And the history was just amazing. Yeah, no cars allowed. So you got bicycles, pedestrians, and horse-drawn buggies and wagons.
There's a picture of what it looked like from out in the water, looking at the fort. And that's what it looked like the day that we visited. But of course, this was the arch that we walked out to. We figured we could take the walk out and we would ride a taxi back. And then after we got out there, we found out the taxis don't go out that far.
But yeah, the natural beauty and the actual history of the island, it was really neat. I'd love to go back. And yes, we had some Mackinac fudge, and it was delicious.
I think it would be, this is the Grand Hotel, and it would be very expensive to stay there, but it would be so much fun to stay there for a couple days and just really explore the island completely, thoroughly. It was great having the day that we did there, but more time would be fun.
Yes, and taking our bicycles next time we go.
Yes. We got a little empty spot on the street there while you were videoing, and when I took my picture, because they were pretty crammed full most of the time. That was very crowded. The busyness of downtown area was not our favorite part of it.
No, we ended up staying 1 block north of the main street when we initially got there, because we walked up to the Grand Hotel and then out to the arch, and we didn't hit the main street till we were headed back, and wow, was it busy. I think we actually enjoyed the lesser used street 1 block north than the main street.
Definitely.
It was a neat experience, and I would love to go back to Mackinac Island. And we were able to camp in St. Ignace and just take the ferry over, so it was nice and close. And our camper was fine in the campground. But it was a lot of fun.
It would be really easy if someone was asking for recommendations. This would be a no doubt, definitely. If you have the chance to go to Mackinac Island, take the chance and do it.
Yeah, we barely scratched the surface. The year we were there also, the loop around the island was closed to bicycles for some construction work, so something to pay attention to on their website, is make sure everything's open.
So the Dutch village was something that I wanted to go to because I had been as a child. I remembered it fondly, and so we decided we would go. I kind of was worried that it was going to be cheesy and that Keith would be wondering why I wanted to go, and that I would be thinking, what was I thinking to suggest this? But we had such a wonderful time. It was so neat to see just the culture of the Dutch as they came across to the United States, and the different arts that they do, that they still continue to do. And I love the fact that this is still owned by the same family that owned it when I was there as a child.
And when she says there as a child, she means as a child, possibly about 2 or 3 years old was her first visit
time
here. But the culture, just the way they're holding on to it, and you can see it in the construction, in the different shops, in the different confections in the shops.
The things they demonstrate.
Yes, the barns are constructed differently than what you see now. They raised animals slightly different. Their houses and the way they built things was different, and it's just really neat to see the broad spectrum of their culture that they're holding on to and letting you experience and be involved in. There's a little restaurant there, and I had a lunch that was Dutch food.
Oh, you love
and
that.
I loved it.
And that little drawbridge there, it isn't a drawbridge anymore, but I remember it as a drawbridge when I was a kid. And we talked to several people, and they were like, what drawbridge? They didn't know what I was talking about because it's been fastened down so that it couldn't be raised for years.
The interesting part about the drawbridge is the Dutch method of construction was they had counterweights and pulleys and stuff set up on the drawbridge, so a small kid, 3 or 4 years old, could grab the rope and pull it and lift the bridge up. It was really neat, everything that it was described as.
Which is probably why it made such an impression on me as a kid, because
Yeah.
I could actually operate it. The funny part about watching the dancers there a moment ago is just after Keith had stopped the video camera, one of the dancers doing a high kick ended up chucking her shoe way out over everybody's heads. And their cheese was amazing. They had all these different types of cheese set up with all the different things you could sample. And so we sampled them. They encouraged us to sample a lot of them. And I have to say, we don't even really ever eat cheese, and we went home with 2 or 3 packages. It was so good.
In the Delftware, almost all of what you see here, if not all of it, is all hand painted by experts. And some of this is actually exported or imported from the Dutch.
Netherlands.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful.
Just amazing. This is another one of those small thing, but if you're in the area, get to it. Where do you even start with the Ark Encounter? So when they built this, they used the biblical measurements and tried to keep things as accurate to the Bible as possible. And it was just awe-inspiring. As you approach, you have to park in the parking lot and take a tram down to the main area. As you're taking the tram, there's a couple of times you can catch a glimpse of the Ark, but you don't really grasp its size till you show up at the visitor center and
There you are.
walk through the archway and get closer and closer. As you can see me standing down below it with my arms stretched out, it is huge. I think the thing that fascinated us was the thought processes that they went through in demonstrating that this was possible given the construction methods and the materials available to them at that time, from shipbuilding to animal storage to supplies. They did the math. They did the research. All of it would have fit.
And it was amazing to see how well they had thought out how would we store the food for the animals, and how would we make sure they got fed? How would we take care of the waste products? What about ventilation? What about watering them? It was really fascinating. And it was a really neat experience to actually see in person because you might know the numbers fit in your head, but seeing it in real life was a little bit different. And of course, it's artistic license was how they put it. Yeah, so we don't know exactly how their rooms would have been set up, or, you know, whether or not they had a blacksmith shop on board. But it's thought out well enough, and it's demonstrating what could be possible. And so I think whatever details might be different than what was actually done would be irrelevant.
I think one of the things that would be different is this is a tourist attraction.
So it has the huge wide aisles.
Right. It has huge wide aisles. It has huge stairways. And these things will take up space that you wouldn't need to have taken up in just walkways for the tourists in the actual Ark. You just need pathways for a single person to walk through to access the animals. You're right. But it was so well thought out in what could have been on the Ark. No one knows except for Noah and his family, because they were the ones on the Ark.
And it was funny, as we were getting ready to leave, there was a horrific rainstorm and thunderstorm that came through just as we were getting in our truck and leaving, and it was kind of like, maybe we should go back on the Ark.
Yes. But I think they did a really good job of showing what could be. And, you know, one thing I never thought of as a kid is the shops for them to work in and their dwelling places on the Ark, which they demonstrated here.
And my parents were able to meet us here, and since my dad is fighting cancer, that was really special to be able to share this with them. That just made it a little bit more.
Right.
Oh, I loved Acadia.
Acadia was a bucket list thing when we started this whole trip.
We knew that after traveling for a couple weeks, this would be like a nice chance to pause and take a good breath and just relax. And so we stayed there a little bit longer than we'd stayed anywhere else up to that point.
A lot longer.
And it was, I mean, it would have been nice just from the time, but also because it's so beautiful. This was really the first place I was super sad to leave. We spent over a week there. Yeah, we did.
And that was the first time we really slowed down. We fell in love with Maine.
Maine was fantastic.
Maine was awesome. I mean, I know this is summertime, and I know their winters are cold and they get lots of snow.
But it's so pretty.
But we fell in love with Maine. There's so much to see in Acadia. We almost missed the Shudik Peninsula, but we ended up going over there as well and driving that. We drove Loop Road. We stayed on what they call the quiet side.
Which we were glad of.
Yes. Yeah, we stayed in one of the national park campgrounds there. Seawall Campground. But the natural beauty, there's so much to see and do. I mean, if you're into the town vibe and still want to go to Acadia, you have Bar Harbor.
Oh, I loved our fire. That was the first place we were able to have a fire. This was the Ship Harbor hike that wasn't too far from our campground.
It was pretty much right across the street from our campground. I mean, literally from our camp to the trailhead was like 3 minutes.
Something like that.
It was, yeah.
We got there, of course, so we could be sunset, look at the moon rise. And then our cliff hike. That was one of our favorite things that we did.
It was, yeah, I'd have to put it up there in the top of the things we did at Acadia was this hike.
I loved that granite wall. That was just so, just awe-inspiring.
The sheer magnitude of it all. You felt so small, and a lot of times you'd walk through this and you're thinking, This is some Hollywood movie set. This isn't real.
It's so cool seeing those trees growing out of almost nothing, and they're just huge. And Quaddie Head was, of course, the one thing, if I could only have done one thing, I wanted to see the sunrise at Quaddie Head Lighthouse. We're not used to seeing the sun rise over the ocean. We're on the West Coast, so the sun sets over the ocean. So this was completely upside down for us. So we really, really wanted to see it. And I made you get up at 2:30 in the morning to take me out there for it, which was also a big deal.
Yes, she said 2:30 in the morning. So we could do a 3-hour drive to get there in time.
For that picture.
Before the sun got up, so she could take that picture.
It was still my favorite thing. A lot of times when you have something that you're thinking, oh, this is the thing I really want to do, sometimes it turns out to be disappointing because it doesn't meet your expectations. But that met my expectations and more.
If we ever do make it to Maine again and go to Acadia, I can almost guarantee you we are going to plan additional days to travel up near Quaddie Head, camp up there.
Yeah.
So she doesn't have to get me up at 2:30 in the morning. But also, that area up there was really neat, and it would have been fun to spend more time there. Because we ended up doing this as a one-day thing. We drove from Acadia up there, beat the sun, watched the sunrise, and then we drove back to Acadia that same day.
It was a long day, but it was so, so amazing.
Yeah, the sheer natural beauty. And to us, the oddity of watching the sun come up over the ocean instead of set over the ocean was quite different than our normal.
And it was neat knowing that we're as far east as you can go in the United States.
Yes. And the memories of this trip will last a long time. And being able to put these videos together and share them with our family and friends has just been an awesome experience. And we appreciate everybody out there watching these. So would you go back?
I would love to go back. I know you didn't think I would say that, but I would love to go back.
Yeah.
So we'll be back again to go through numbers 6 through 10. Thanks for watching.